I'm Sheefra, and this is Jaydee, and this is Joseph, and he's our new apprentice at Nagdio Farm. And today we're going to have a conversation, and the topic is around victim mentality. And so we are questioning about these two different beliefs, two different stories we can tell ourselves. One is that we are victim to our situations and to the things that happen in our lives, and we have no control over it. The other is that we are fully responsible for creating the situations that we experience in our lives. So far, we feel that neither of those can be proven, and so what this conversation is about is trying on both stories and seeing which story seems to serve us and really feel the most empowering and feel the most freeing for us to live our lives. So, I want to start with you, Joseph, and first, can you tell us a little bit of what the victim mentality, what that even means to you, what it feels like to you, and then we'll go from there.
Well, like being a victim for me is like having self-pity, being in resentments and holding anger and fear for anger in the moment and fear for the future, and having a persecutor or some kind of judgment on the experiences that happened to me, and giving someone else my power. And not being a victim is more like taking my power back, accepting the past, what happened as if I chose it to happen, living in the moment in love, and looking for the future in faith. That's kind of what I see as the two sides of it.
So can you give us an example from your life of a situation where you felt the possibility that you had no control over this, you felt victimized?
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us that story, and then I want to try on both views with that.
Okay, so my mom died of cancer when I was just coming into adulthood, about 21, and that experience, it seems like out of my control, or that I had no control over that, and that I was a victim to cancer of my mom dying. And so that's one experience that we can talk about.
Okay. So your mom died of cancer, and your experience, like your emotions with that are that you felt angry?
Yeah, and I had some resentments against the hospital, the doctors. Like, okay. I felt like they killed her, and it took me a long time to accept her death. Mm-hmm. Just recently, actually. And so I lived in a lot of anger for a lot of years about it.
Okay.
In the moment, I was really angry for a long time, and was victimizing myself, I think, big time. And then had fear for the future, like just living in that victimization had those components to it, resentments, anger, and fear. And then just recently I kind of come out of that and have been able to accept what the experience was and kind of move through that victim role. Mm-hmm. I don't know necessarily if I chose it to happen. That's kind of something I'm struggling with, is like, did I choose to go through this experience, or did it just happen? And I think if it just happened, it's more common to be in a victim role. If I chose it to happen, like before I was born, I chose to be born into this family, and chose that my mom was going to die of cancer. We made this agreement before, because there's a viewpoint like that, and that's the choosing your life, and which kind of, I think, gives me more power to move forward and have faith.
Right.
Maybe.
Whether or not one is true or the other is true, you can't know.
Right. But I know that victimizing definitely held me back, living in anger and resentment and fear. So lately I've been able to accept it.
So the first story was when she died. The first story that you held on to a while was the victimized story of this is someone else's fault, and a story of anger, and versus the story that you're moving into now, which is one of acceptance. So staying first with that first story of the victim story before we go to the other one, like, did that story serve you? What did that anger give you? Did it help you?
I think it showed me who I don't want to be. Like, anger really destroyed a lot of my relationships with my other friends, and it just kind of crippled my life and took me to a place that was unhealthy and harmful to not only to myself but to others.
Because oh, go ahead.
It felt like I was getting stuck. I was stuck and not growing in that victim role. I was just like isolating and harming myself.
Do you think it would have harmed you or hurt you if you had instead been able to see it from the other perspective of somehow this was something I chose to bring into my life, or somehow this is part of an experience that I needed? Would it have?
I think, yeah, if I would have been able to first see that victim side, which I never really saw that until I went through it. So once I went through it, even though it was for a long time, now I have an experience of that role of being in resentments and anger and fear. And so now I can pull out of that because I can see that it was harmful and unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
But if I didn't, I don't think if I didn't experience it, I would have never known how to go to the other side of that, of the choice and the living in acceptance, not
So
victim.
now let's really go into the other story of one. There's just the acceptance of, well, this just happened. Which, does that feel a little bit like resignation?
I mean,
Just
I'm not sure
what do you mean by acceptance? Like, because I feel like if you're victim to something and then you accept it, it's a little bit resigning versus embracing it as a part of your path. Like, where are you at with it right now?
I feel like right now it happened. I have to accept that it happened. I'm not sure if I chose it to happen, or if we, as a family, a nuclear family of my parents and my brothers and sisters, if we chose it to happen. I still just am kind of foggy on that area.
Yeah.
Like, I know it happened, it hurt, it was, I chose to let it fester in me and I caused resentments towards it, and it just caused me to stray off a healthy path. But as far as whether or not I chose it to happen, or I'm not sure about that part of it yet.
So, I'm pretty impossible to know, but let's try it on now, okay? So let's just try the story on, which would be, let's try on a story something like you chose, before you were born, some part of your being chose to come into a family where you would have this experience of your mother dying in the way that she did, and that would give you, certain lessons that you, before you were born, were calling to learn. You don't know if it's true or not, but try on that story for a second and tell me how that feels as far as in your emotional body and in your ability to feel like a happy person, like a free person, and like an empowered being. Just what does that feel like to you?
Well, I kind of resonated with it, but it's hard to accept that we would cause that much pain to each other and choose to cause pain and grief on it in experience in life. Like, why wouldn't I just choose to have a fulfilling, healthy life with a family that my parents grow old and die when they get old? Why would I want to make myself go through such a painful experience and then have to? And I can kind of see why maybe now, that maybe I need to learn, my soul or something needed to learn that pain, or how to deal with that pain and that grief for to teach someone, or to pass on that knowledge of how to move through the pain reasonably, and even go through the pain unreasonably, and how that experience is. Maybe that's just it's almost comprehend what maybe my soul is doing in a created body like this. You know, like that's a hard question to answer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to know, I guess. I was trying more than to know, because I don't know the answer to that either. Just looking at the stories we tell ourselves and how that affects us. And
I think it definitely affects the story you tell, and yeah.
Yeah,
So.
good process.
I'd like to summarize, because I'm just a little unclear about the first story.
Uh-huh.
The first story is, you're just going along peachy keen, all of a sudden your mom up gets cancer and dies, and there's all this anger directed at the hospital and at the people for your mom dying.
And kind of God.
And at God too. God turned his back on me, and this is an unjust situation.
Yeah.
Right? Which I would question if that's not taking your mom's power away, because maybe she learned the lessons she came here to learn and wanted to go and do her own thing. You're an adult, you're 21, you know, I mean, it's time for her to, you know, and she's also perhaps paying for the choices she's made. I don't know, did she smoke? Did she, you know?
It was breast cancer, and it was just, she was really healthy.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's all kinds of circumstances, and there's even things before that I was dealing with too. So, just trauma that happened as a child that got brought up right when she got cancer, and so
could have been transferred.
Yeah.
Because that's what I want to know is, like, why does her dying affect you so much? You're an adult. She's lived her life. I mean, did you feel remorse for maybe not telling her you loved her enough, or showing her? Did you feel there was distance and unresolved issues when she passed?
I think, yeah, there's always unresolved issues, but I think the biggest thing was I was just coming out of being raised in a traumatic kind of environment as a child, and just coming to realize that I had trauma and what trauma was, and then communicating that with her at the time.
Oh, there was a real healing process that got cut off.
Right.
Very interesting.
And so right when I started to heal from this stuff that happened in my past, she started having trauma and getting this disease, and it lasted for 4 years. And so as I'm healing from my stuff, she's dying. And so it's causing another wound in me, where I was trying to heal from my wounds. I couldn't quite heal from her wound, and it just caused a lot of pain and grief, which I wasn't able to reasonably deal with. That I wasn't dealing with in a way or knew how to deal with in a way that was reasonable to grow and to move through it. Instead, I was kind of stuck.
To me, this sounds like wrestling with accepting your parents as people and even peers, because you're 21. Now you're like, well, shoot, Mom, you were 20 when you had a kid yourself, and you maybe didn't have the parenting skills or the support network you needed, and that's why I didn't feel like I was nourished as much as I could have been. But seeing them as people instead of this godlike figure, who are your parents, who are above and beyond and bigger than us.
Yeah, it was kind of coming out of an illusion maybe of childhood into an adulthood, which got kind of distorted because of the death of her. And I was probably needing more support to go into adulthood, but she was taken away at that time, so I was just left to do it on my own. And it's taken a long time to accept that area of it. But along the path, I created other problems in my life, and I made choices that made it even harder to grow up and accept her death, and to move on into life and start being an adult.
Well, so I'd like to summarize one more time, just for my own clarity. The view you've had is, my mother was ripped away from me by God, by the hospital, by the circumstances of my life, and I really missed out on something that was important to me. And the view that you're considering taking on, you're just savoring, and if you like it, you might take it on. If you don't, you won't. Is that you created your mom to help you to learn these lessons, and sometimes there are lessons on, working on my emotional well-being and maybe a lack in childhood, and that now this is an opportunity for you to look at that, and that no one was bad, and your mom made her own choices, and